Okay, just hold still. This won't hurt, probably." The voice was liquid silver laced with something that sounded suspiciously like amusement. Kale blinked, grit scraping under his eyelids. The air tasted wrong, thick, metallic, humid. Colors swam, resolving into the underside of something. Gleaming, organic-looking arches overhead, pulsing with soft, rhythmic light. And then her. She filled his vision, leaning over him, close enough that he could feel a faint warmth radiating from her skin. Skin that wasn't skin, not really. It was a mosaic of tiny, iridescent scales that shifted from deep indigo to shimmering emerald as she moved. Lines of brighter, golden light pulsed beneath the surface, tracing patterns he couldn't decipher. Her eyes were large, luminous, lacking pupils but holding an unnerving depth, like twin pools of molten starlight. Two delicate, prehensile tendrils, tipped with faint luminescence, hovered near his temple, twitching with curiosity. "Where?" He croaked, his throat raw. "Safe," she chirped, the sound strangely melodic. One of those tendrils darted out faster than thought and tapped his forehead. A jolt, like static electricity but deeper, resonated through his skull, not painful but intensely weird. He flinched back, banging his head against the padded surface he was lying on. "Hey, personal space, lady." Her head tilted, a gesture surprisingly human, though the slight flaring of the delicate fins along her jawline wasn't. Personal. Space? She tasted the words, the sound alien and fascinating on her tongue. The golden light under her scales brightened, swirling faster. "You occupy my space, human." Kale. He stiffened. How did she know his name? Panic flared, cold and sharp. He wasn't on his ship, the rusty comet. He wasn't anywhere he recognized. The last thing he remembered was a proximity alarm screaming, a flash of white light engulfing the cockpit, then nothing. Capture. Fuck. He tried to sit up, but invisible pressure held him down. Not crushing, just firm, persistent. "Let me go." She leaned closer again, her scent hitting him, ozone, rain-soaked earth, and something else, something uniquely floral and intoxicating. It messed with his head, scrambling his fear with an unwanted flicker of interest. Her eyes tracked the pulse jumping in his neck. "Not yet. You are unbalanced," prickly. One scaled hand, surprisingly graceful with long, triple-jointed fingers ending in dark, smooth talons, reached towards his chest. He braced for another jolt, but her touch was unexpectedly gentle as she rested her palm over his heart. The pressure pinning him lessened slightly. Beneath her hand, her scales felt cool and smooth, yet vibrated with a low, thrumming energy that seeped into him, paradoxically calming his racing pulse even as his mind screamed danger. The golden light intensified, flowing from her hand into him, a warm, tingling sensation. "Your energy signature is chaotic," she murmured, her eyes half-lidded, lost in concentration. The tendrils near her temples swayed rhythmically, like a damaged star drive running on fumes. "Yeah, well, kidnapping tends to do that to a guy," he shot back, trying to regain some footing, some semblance of control. "Also, what the hell are you?" She pulled her hand back, the warmth receding, leaving him feeling strangely bereft. The light beneath her scales dimmed slightly, shifting towards cooler blues. "I am Lyra, and you were not kidnapped, rescued." "Rescued," he scoffed. "From what? A perfectly good Tuesday." "From spatial debris," she said, her tone suddenly sharp, the silver edge hardening. "Your vessel was compromised, terminally. Terminally. The rusty comet, his home, his livelihood gone." The word hit him harder than the disorientation. He swallowed, the sarcastic retort dying on his lips. Lyra watched him, her strange eyes seeming to see more than just his physical reaction. The light patterns shifted again, softening, swirling like distant galaxies. "You are valuable, Kale. Your pattern unique. Needed, valuable." That sounded ominous. People who said things like that usually wanted something you weren't keen on giving. He pushed against the invisible restraint again. It yielded slightly more this time. Progress. "Needed for what? Spare parts," she laughed, a sound like wind chimes caught in a sudden breeze. "Hardly. You are potential." The tendril twitched near his face again. He eyed it warily. "Potential for what?" Her lips curved, revealing faintly blue gums and teeth that were just a little too sharp. The golden light flared beneath her scales, warm and bright. "Potential for connection." He finally managed to shove himself upright, the invisible pressure dissolving completely as Lyra stepped back, giving him room but still radiating an unnerving possessiveness. Cale swung his legs over the side of the bioluminescent couch thing he'd been lying on. His standard-issue cargo pants and synth leather jacket felt grimy and out of place in the sleek, softly glowing chamber. It wasn't a cell, not exactly. More like luxurious confinement. Curves dominated the architecture, seamless joins between walls and floor, everything emitting that same soft, internal light. He took a tentative step, testing his balance. The floor felt slightly resilient under his boots. Connection, he repeated, voice dripping sarcasm. Right. Look, Lyra, I appreciate the rescue, allegedly, but I've got places to be, people to disappoint. So if you could just point me towards the nearest functioning shuttle bay. Lyra tilted her head, the fins along her jaw flaring slightly again. The golden light under her scales pulsed steadily, a warm, inviting rhythm. Leaving is inadvisable and impossible. Try me. He scanned the room quickly. One obvious exit, a smooth panel that probably slid open. No visible controls, typical high-end alien crap. He started towards it. Lyra moved with liquid speed, a blur of shifting indigo and gold, intercepting him effortlessly. She didn't grab him, just placed herself directly in his path, radiating that weird warmth again. Close up, he could see the intricate detail of her scales, the way they overlapped like impossibly fine chainmail, catching the ambient light. Your vessel is space dust, Cale, she said, her voice softer now, the silver quality tinged with something that might have been sympathy or maybe just clinical assessment. The debris field it encountered, it shreds hulls like tissue paper. You were fortunate we detected your distress signal. He clenched his fists. Fortunate. Extremely, she agreed, her gaze flicking down his body and back up, lingering on his eyes. It wasn't overtly sexual, but it was intensely focused, proprietary. Your biological signature registered as compatible, a rare find. Compatible? Compatible with what? He sidestepped, trying to get around her. She mirrored his movement instantly, staying perfectly centered in his path. It was almost a dance, a really annoying, potentially lethal dance. With continuation, she said, choosing her words carefully. The tendrils near her temples drifted closer to him, questing. He resisted the urge to swat them away. Look, I don't know what kind of interspecies dating service you think you beamed me into, but I'm not interested. Interest is mutable, she murmured. Her eyes seemed to glow brighter. Proximity often clarifies perspective. Suddenly the ship, or whatever this place was, lurched violently. A low klaxon began to sound, a pulsating thrum that vibrated through the deck plating. Red light washed over the soft ambient glow, casting Lyra's shifting scales in stark, alarming relief. She straightened instantly, her playful demeanor vanishing, replaced by sharp alertness. The fins along her jaw flattened, the tendrils retracted slightly, and the light beneath her scales shifted to a sharp, urgent crimson. What was that? Cale demanded, instinctively bracing himself. External interference, she snapped, her luminous eyes fixed on the sealed doorway. Unwelcome guests. She grabbed his arm. Her grip was surprisingly strong, her scaled fingers cool against his jacket. The thrumming energy intensified, flowing directly into him. It wasn't calming this time. It felt like pure adrenaline, heightening his senses. Stay close, she ordered, pulling him towards a section of the wall that looked identical to the rest. Don't touch anything unless I tell you. Wouldn't dream of it, he muttered, letting himself be pulled along. Escaping suddenly seemed less important than surviving whatever was causing the ship-wide alarm. Lyra pressed her other hand against the wall panel. It shimmered, dissolving into an opening just large enough for them to slip through. Beyond lay a narrower corridor, dimly lit and utilitarian. The main door hissed open behind them, revealing nothing yet, but the sense of imminent threat was palpable. Lyra pulled him into the secondary corridor, and the panel solidified behind them, plunging them into near darkness, broken only by the faint, residual crimson glow from her scales. The klaxon was muffled here, but the vibrations underfoot felt stronger. Okay, Cale whispered, his voice tight. New plan. What are we doing? Lyra turned to face him in the tight space, her eyes huge and luminous in the gloom. Her crimson glow cast strange shadows on her face, making her look fierce, almost predatory. Surviving, she breathed, her scent filling the small space, sharp and electric now. Together. The cramped service tunnel smelled of ionized air and something vaguely organic, like damp soil after a lightning strike. Lyra's crimson glow was their only light source, casting long, dancing shadows that made the narrow space feel even more claustrophobic. Cale could feel the vibrations of distant impacts through the soles of his boots. Trouble, big trouble. So, he said, keeping his voice low, these unwelcome guests, friends of yours. Lyra shot him a look that could have corroded metal. The crimson light flickered. Hardly. They are scavengers, hunters, they seek what is rare. And that would be, he had a sinking feeling he knew the answer. Her luminous eyes met his in the dark. Us, well shit, that clarified things. Valuable, compatible, needed, it all clicked into a deeply uncomfortable picture. He wasn't just a potential mate, he was apparently rare genetic stock, and so was she. And someone else wanted to collect. So your rescue basically put a giant flashing rare specimens here sign on my ass. Your distress beacon drew attention, she countered, her voice tight. They likely tracked its signature, then detected ours when we retrieved you. Your arrival complicated existing vulnerabilities. She started moving down the tunnel, her steps silent and fluid despite the urgency. Cale followed, stumbling slightly on an unseen pipe. Lyra paused, glancing back, the crimson light momentarily softening around the edges. Watch your footing, human. Tripping is inefficient. Yeah, well, walking in the dark following a glow-in-the-dark alien while being hunted isn't exactly in the pilot's manual, he retorted, catching his balance. He could feel the low thrum of her energy even without touching her, a constant presence beside him in the darkness. It was unnerving how quickly he was getting used to it. They moved in silence for a few minutes, the only sounds their soft footsteps and the distant, muffled thuds of the attack. Cale's mind raced. He was trapped on an alien ship, possibly a royal one given Lyra's proprietary air, with hunters outside and a woman who seemed to view him as breeding stock inside. Not ideal. Still, she hadn't actually hurt him, and right now she was his best chance of not ending up as someone's lab experiment or wall trophy. Okay, he said quietly. What's the plan? Where are we going? Auxiliary control, she replied without slowing. Main systems are compromised. We need to sever the breach sections, vent atmosphere if necessary. Vent atmosphere with us in here, preferably not, she said dryly. But the ship's integrity comes first. My people depend on it. Her people, so more than just her onboard, royalty definitely, or someone important enough to have people. They reached a junction. Lyra paused, tilting her head, her tendrils twitching slightly as if sensing something. The crimson glow pulsed. This way. She turned left into an even narrower passage. He could hear a faint humming sound now, growing louder. You seem pretty calm for someone whose ship is getting shot at, Cale observed, trying to gauge her reaction. Was this normal for her? Her scales shifted, a flicker of deep violet mixing with the crimson. Calm is relative. Focus is required. Panic serves no purpose. She glanced back at him, a flicker of something unreadable in her eyes. Besides, you are here. An unexpected variable. It is distracting. Distracting. Was that flirting? Mid-attack, this alien was seriously messing with his head. The humming grew louder, resolving into the thrum of active machinery. They emerged into a small, circular room filled with softly glowing consoles arranged around a central pillar. Auxiliary control. It looked mostly intact. Lyra moved immediately to the main console, her scaled fingers flying across the unfamiliar interface. Light patterns shifted on the screen in response. They're trying to breach the engine core containment, she muttered, her voice tight with concentration. Fools, they'll destroy us all. Cale stepped closer, peering over her shoulder. The displays were alien, but energy flow diagrams were universal enough. He pointed to a fluctuating power conduit schematic. Can you reroute power from secondary life support? Create a feedback loop into their docking clamp? Lyra paused, her tendrils stilled. She looked at the schematic, then at him, her luminous eyes widening slightly. The crimson light softened, a hint of the earlier gold bleeding through. You understand engineering principles. Ex-freighter pilot, remember, had to patch up the comet more times than I can count. She wasn't exactly factory new. A small smile touched Lyra's lips. Show me. He reached past her, his hand brushing her arm. Her scales were cool, smooth, and vibrated faintly. He felt that jolt again, stronger this time, arcing between them. Her breath hitched, and the golden light under her scales flared momentarily, washing out the crimson. He quickly tapped the console where he'd indicated. Here. If you divert power through this junction, then overload the emitter array nearest their point of entry. Lyra's fingers flew again, following his suggestion, inputting commands with blinding speed. The ship groaned, a deep resonant hum building in the walls. On the schematic display, energy surged along the path Cale had indicated. A moment later, a jarring shudder ran through the deck, followed by a satisfying, distant clunk. External docking clamps disengaged, Lyra breathed, watching a status indicator flash green. They're cut loose. The immediate threat seemed to have passed. The klaxon stopped, though the red emergency lighting remained. Lyra leaned back from the console, the tension visibly draining from her posture. The light under her scales softened completely, shifting back to a swirling mix of indigo and gold. She turned to Cale, her expression a mixture of relief and something else. Curiosity, assessment. Your input was effective, Cale. Glad I could be of service, he said, trying to sound nonchalant, though his heart was still pounding from the adrenaline and their brief proximity. Does this mean I get that shuttle now? Lyra's smile returned, wider this time, showing those sharp teeth again. It was unsettling and ridiculously attractive. Not yet, she purred, stepping closer, invading his personal space deliberately. The air between them crackled. Our connection is proving beneficial. Perhaps we should explore its potential further. The auxiliary control room felt strangely intimate now that the immediate danger had passed. The emergency lighting bathed everything in a soft red glow, reflecting off Lyra's iridescent scales as she stood close, far too close. Her scent, that intoxicating mix of ozone and rain and alien florals, seemed stronger, clouding his thoughts. Cale held his ground, refusing to back away, though every instinct screamed at him to put distance between them. Distance felt unsafe somehow. Which was ridiculous. She was the potential threat, the captor, the alien who wanted his compatibility. Explore its potential, he echoed, raising an eyebrow. Sounds suspiciously like HR speak for unpaid overtime. Lyra tilted her head, the movement fluid and mesmerizing. The delicate fins along her jaw fluttered slightly. We do not have HR, she said, the concept seeming foreign to her. We have need, purpose, and now curiosity. Her gaze dropped to his mouth, then flicked back up to meet his eyes. The golden light beneath her scales pulsed, warm and insistent. You are resourceful, Cale, quick thinking, not just compatible genetic material. Gee, thanks, I'll put that on my resume. He couldn't help the sarcasm, it was reflexive, a shield against the pull he felt towards her, the strange resonance humming between them. She reached out, her long, scaled fingers hovering just inches from his chest, where she'd touched him before. He could feel the warmth radiating from her palm, the faint thrum of her energy. He didn't flinch this time. Do you always deflect with sharpness? She murmured, her voice dropping lower, the silver tones deepening. Is it fear or anticipation? Maybe I just don't like being treated like a prize bull at the galactic fair, he countered, though his voice lacked its usual bite. Her proximity was doing strange things to his equilibrium. A bull. She frowned slightly, the tendrils near her temples twitching. Is that desirable, strong, virile? It's livestock, he clarified, exasperated. Raised for breeding. Recognition dawned in her luminous eyes, followed by a spark of amusement. The golden light swirled faster. Ah, a crude analogy, but not entirely inaccurate. My lineage requires infusion, strength, resilience. Her fingers finally made contact, resting lightly against the rough fabric of his jacket, right over his heart. That jolt again, but softer this time, a warm current spreading through his chest. He could feel his own heartbeat quicken, echoing the pulse of light beneath her scales. Your lineage, he prompted, trying to keep his mind on the facts, on understanding the situation, rather than on the sensation of her touch. The Cathar Dominion has endured for millennia, she said, her voice taking on a formal, almost regal tone, though her eyes remained fixed on his. But time erodes. Our genetic diversity dwindles, external threats exploit weakness. So, royalty in need, and he was the potential fix. The pressure suddenly felt immense. And I'm the lucky winner of the genetic lottery. Your pattern is uniquely resonant with mine, she confirmed, her gaze intense. A match strong enough to potentially overcome the fragility that plagues recent generations. Fragility. That sounded ominous. What kind of fragility? And what was this resonance she kept talking about? It felt real, this pull between them, but understanding it was like trying to grasp smoke. Her thumb moved slightly, brushing against the fabric, sending another shiver through him. "Why me?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "There have to be others, compatible Cathar males." A shadow passed through her eyes, the golden light dimming, replaced by swirling violet and deep blue. "There are complications, politics, old rivalries. An external candidate bypasses many difficulties." She leaned fractionally closer, her strange, beautiful face inches from his. "And none have resonated quite like you." The air thickened, charged with unspoken energy. He could see the pulse in the delicate skin beneath her jaw, smell the intoxicating scent of her, feel the insistent thrumming beneath her palm. His resistance was fraying, worn down by adrenaline, confusion, and this undeniable magnetic pull. He wanted to push her away, demand answers, assert his autonomy. He also wanted to close the distance, find out if her lips felt as cool and smooth as her scales, taste the mystery she represented. "This resonance," he managed, his throat tight. "What does it feel like for you?" Her eyes widened slightly, surprised by the question. The golden light surged back, bright and warm. "It feels like finding a missing piece of a song," she whispered, her voice filled with unexpected vulnerability. "Like a circuit finally completed, a warmth in the void." She tilted her head again, her gaze searching his. "What does it feel like for you, Kale?" Before he could process the question, let alone answer, her other hand came up, cool fingers tracing the line of his jaw. Her touch was electric, sending sparks down his spine. He sucked in a sharp breath. Her eyes darkened, the starlight within them intensifying. "This," she murmured, her lips parting slightly. The tendrils near her temples drifted forward, brushing against his cheek with feather-light touches that sent contradictory signals of intimacy and alienness through his system. His resolve crumbled. Need, raw and unexpected, surged through him. He leaned in, mirroring her movement, closing the final inches between them. Her lips were cool, smooth, and tasted faintly of ozone and something else, something indefinably sweet and alien. The kiss wasn't gentle. It was demanding, exploratory, a collision of curiosity and pent-up tension. Her scaled fingers tightened on his jaw, holding him steady as her other hand slid from his chest up around his neck, pulling him closer. The thrumming energy he felt from her intensified, sinking into his bones, a resonant hum that seemed to vibrate in time with his own accelerated pulse. Cale wrapped his arms around her waist, pulling her flush against him. Her body was lean, wiry beneath the sleek scales, surprisingly strong. He could feel the subtle shift of her musculature, the faint vibration of the light patterns moving beneath her skin. It was overwhelming, intoxicating, completely unlike anything he'd ever experienced. The kiss deepened, her tongue surprisingly soft, lacking the expected reptilian fork, tracing the seam of his lips, seeking entrance. He granted it, meeting her exploration with his own. It was a conversation without words, a frantic exchange of sensory data. Her taste, the cool smoothness of her scales against his hands, the faint, floral scent clinging to her, the low hum resonating between them, it overloaded his senses in the best possible way. She made a soft sound in her throat, a purring vibration that he felt more than heard, running through her body into his. The golden light under her scales pulsed erratically, flaring brightly with each deepening caress. Her tendrils brushed against his temples, sending distracting sparks across his awareness, a secondary layer of sensation that was both intimate and unnerving. He broke the kiss, gasping for air, resting his forehead against hers. Her luminous eyes were half closed, the light within them swirling like nebulae. The red emergency lighting painted highlights on her damp lips and the sharp contours of her face. "Okay," he breathed, his voice husky. "Okay, that's potent." Lyra's lips curved into a slow, satisfied smile. The golden light stabilized, pulsing with a deep, steady rhythm. "Resonance," she murmured, her breath warm against his skin. "Connection, it is agreeable." "Agreeable?" he laughed, a shaky, breathless sound. "Lady, that was practically a system overload." He could still feel the echo of her energy thrumming through him. He felt raw, exposed, but strangely exhilarated. He hadn't felt this alive since, well, possibly ever. She pulled back slightly, just enough to look him fully in the face. Her expression was serious now, the playfulness replaced by an intense scrutiny. This connection, it is vital, Kale, not just for my lineage, for survival. Survival. The word brought back the reality of their situation. The hunters outside, the dwindling genetic diversity, the fragility she'd mentioned. This wasn't just a moment of intense attraction. It was tangled up in desperation, in consequences he didn't fully understand. What fragility? He asked, his hand still resting on her waist, unwilling to break the physical contact completely. What happens if this infusion doesn't work? The light in her eyes flickered, shadows swirling within the gold. She hesitated, her gaze dropping for a fraction of a second before meeting his again. The Cathar life cycle is sensitive, especially in gestation. Environmental toxins, genetic drift, they have weakened the matrix. Offspring are often born incomplete, fatting before they can fully anchor, fatting. The word sent a chill down his spine despite the warmth radiating from her. And you think a human can fix that? Your species is notoriously resilient, she said, a hint of dryness in her tone. Adaptive, your genetic code is robust, less specialized than ours perhaps, but strong. The resonance suggests your pattern could stabilize the Cathar matrix during development, bolster it. It sounded plausible in a sci-fi, gene-splicing kind of way, but there was something she wasn't saying. He could feel it in the slight tension returning to her body, the way the light under her scales seemed hesitant, guarded. That's not the whole story, is it? He pressed gently. What are you not telling me, Lyra? She pulled away fully this time, turning back towards the console, breaking the connection between them. The air instantly felt colder. The swirling indigo and violet hues returned beneath her scales. There are always risks, she said evasively, her fingers tracing patterns on the dark screen. Pregnancy is inherently dangerous. No, Cale insisted, stepping up behind her close enough to feel the residual energy humming around her. This is different. This fragility, this fatting. Does it affect the mother, the father? She flinched almost imperceptibly at the word father. Her silence stretched, heavy and suffocating in the small room. The distant thrum of the ship's engine seemed unnaturally loud. Finally she spoke, her voice barely audible, stripped of its earlier confidence. The Cathar gestational process requires significant energy, a symbiotic drain. With weakened offspring, the drain can become unsustainable. She turned to face him, her luminous eyes filled with a stark, painful honesty that hit him harder than the kiss. The golden light was gone, replaced by deep, turbulent blues and violets. For the mother, yes, but sometimes for the donor progenitor as well, especially if the resonance is strong. A symbiotic drain, unsustainable on him. That was the secret. The connection wasn't just about creating life, it was about potentially sacrificing his own. The weight of her admission settled between them, heavy and cold. A symbiotic drain, potentially unsustainable on him. The deadly secret wasn't just about her people's desperation or the dangers of hybrid offspring. It was a direct, personal threat. His life force tapped to fuel a fragile pregnancy. Cale felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's environment. He stepped back, needing space, needing to process the implication. The exhilaration from the kiss evaporated, replaced by a knot of betrayal and fear in his gut. So, he said, his voice dangerously quiet, you lure me in with rescues and resonance and this. He gestured vaguely between them, encompassing the kiss, the connection he couldn't deny feeling. All while knowing it could kill me. Lyra's expression tightened, pain flashing in her luminous eyes. The light under her scales churned, a stormy mix of violet and gray. It is a possibility, not a certainty. The risk is higher for the mother, usually. Usually isn't exactly comforting, he snapped, anger finally breaking through the shock. You bring me here, make me feel whatever this is, knowing you're offering me up as a potential battery pack for your royal heir. It was not my intention to deceive, wasn't it? He cut her off, packing the small space, feeling trapped. Needed, valuable, compatible. You left out possibly disposable. The accusation hung in the air. Lyra didn't flinch, just watched him, her face etched with a mixture of regal pride and genuine distress. My duty is to my people, Kale, to our survival. The fate of millennia rests on this. Yes, I need you, we need you, but the choice, the risk must ultimately be yours. Choice, he scoffed. What choice do I have? I'm trapped on your ship, hunted by God knows who, and apparently my only way out involves potentially fatting away like a cheap battery. That is not the only way, she said softly. I could find another compatible, eventually, release you if possible when the danger has passed. Her voice lacked conviction. He could see the conflict in her, the weight of her responsibility warring with the connection they just shared. And releasing him, if those hunters were after rare genetic material, letting him go would be painting a target on his back. But you don't want to find another, he stated, stopping his packing to face her. You want me, because of the resonance. Because it felt like a circuit finally completed. Her fins fluttered, a sign of agitation. The light under her scales pulsed erratically. The resonance, it increases the chances of success, significantly for the child, for survival, and increases the risk to me, he finished grimly. He ran a hand through his hair, feeling exhausted and utterly confused. Part of him wanted to rage, to demand passage off this cursed ship immediately. But another part, the part that still felt the echo of her touch, the memory of that staggering kiss, the part that saw the desperation beneath her regal exterior, that part hesitated. He looked at her, really looked at her. Not just the alien biology, the shifting lights, the strange beauty. He saw the burden she carried, the impossible weight of an entire species' future on her shoulders. She hadn't lied, not directly. She'd omitted. And maybe, just maybe, the omission came from a place of fear, fear of his rejection, fear of losing the best chance her people had. Why didn't you tell me up front? He asked, his anger softening slightly into weary frustration. Before this, Lyra lowered her gaze, focusing on her hands, her long fingers twisting together. I feared you would refuse, that the connection, the resonance, would be severed by the knowledge of the risk before it could fully form. She looked up, meeting his eyes, her own filled with a raw plea. And perhaps I did not want to face the possibility of choosing between my duty and you. The admission hung in the air, vulnerable and unexpected. It hit him harder than the anger. She wasn't just using him. She was caught in the same impossible situation, torn between obligation and a connection she hadn't anticipated, a connection that clearly affected her as deeply as it did him. He sighed, the sound heavy in the quiet room. Okay, let's assume for a minute I don't just try to hijack the first escape pod I see. Her head snapped up, surprise and a flicker of hope in her eyes. Let's assume I'm crazy enough to consider this symbiotic partnership. What happens next? What are the odds? What are we actually up against? Lyra straightened, relief warring with the gravity of the situation. The light under her scales began to steady, shifting towards calmer blues and resilient golds. The odds are unknown with a human progenitor. Theoretically, your robustness mitigates the risk. The primary threat, besides the inherent biological drain, comes from the Cortazi, the hunters who attacked us. The Cortazi, Kale repeated. What do they want? They harvest rare genetic material, Lyra explained, her voice hardening. They target vulnerable populations, species on the brink. Cathar royalty with our unique energy signatures are prime targets. A successful hybrid offspring. Be invaluable to them. They would hunt the child relentlessly, and its progenitors. So not only could the pregnancy drain him dry, but even if it worked, he, Lyra, and the potential child would become targets for galactic predators. Fantastic. Just fucking fantastic. He should run. He should demand she sedate him and drop him off at the nearest neutral port. But looking at Lyra, at the desperate hope warring with fear in her luminous eyes, at the memory of that connection humming between them. Running felt like abandoning something important, something real. He stepped towards her again, closing the distance she had created. He reached out, not touching but letting his hand hover near her arm. This resonance, he said quietly. Does it help protect maybe? Lyra met his gaze, a flicker of the earlier warmth returning. It strengthens the bond, allows for energy transference, support. In theory, a strong resonance could create a buffer, share the burden. Share the burden. Not eliminate it, but share it. It was a sliver of hope, a dangerous one, but it was there. He looked into her alien eyes, seeing the universe swirling within them, and made a decision that felt both insane and inevitable. All right, Lyra, he said, his voice firm. Tell me everything. No more omissions. If we're going to do this, we do it together, eyes wide open. Lyra searched his face, her luminous eyes probing, seeking certainty. The swirling blues and golds beneath her scales intensified, reflecting her complex mix of relief, apprehension, and burgeoning hope. Eyes wide open, she repeated softly, the words tasting foreign but significant on her tongue. Yes, that is acceptable, necessary. She gestured towards one of the auxiliary consoles, its screen dark. There is much you need to understand. About my people, our history, the specific nature of the Cortasi threat, and the intricacies of the bonding process. Kale nodded grimly. Lay it on me. Start with the Cortasi. Why hunt us specifically? Lyra activated the console. Holographic star charts and complex biological diagrams flickered into existence above it. The Cortasi are energy predators, she began, her voice regaining its focused, almost clinical tone, though her eyes kept flicking towards him. They don't just harvest physical genetic material, they seek unique bioenergetic signatures. The Cathar royal lineage possesses a distinct resonance, tied to our ability to manipulate certain energy fields, a trait highly coveted, believed by the Cortasi to grant longevity or power if consumed or integrated. She highlighted a swirling energy pattern on the display. Our resonance, it's a beacon to them. Especially during gestation, when the energy signature amplifies, shifts. Kale muttered. So pregnancy is basically a dinner bell. In essence, Lyra acknowledged, her expression tight. Which is why seclusion and protection are paramount. My family maintains hidden enclaves, shielded vessels like this one, but the Cortasi are persistent. They have spies, informants. They detected your distress signal near our patrol route. A human signature unexpectedly close. They likely waited, observed our rescue, confirming their prize. Prize. He really hated that word. And the fragility, the drain, be specific. Lyra shifted the holographic display to intricate diagrams of Cathar physiology, focusing on swirling energy pathways converging on a central core. The Cathar life matrix requires a constant energetic hum, maintained consciously by the mother during gestation. It anchors the developing consciousness. If the matrix is weak, unstable, the fetus struggles to maintain its energetic signature. It draws more heavily on the mother, seeking stability. She hesitated, then added, and potentially on any strongly resonant progenitor bonded to the mother. Bonded, Kale repeated. How does that work? Is it automatic after? He trailed off, thinking of the kiss, the energy that had flowed between them. Intimacy facilitates the initial connection, Lyra explained carefully, a faint flush of blue rising under her scales. But a true procreative bond requires conscious intent, a mutual acceptance. An exchange of energy signatures willingly offered and received. It is deeper than physical contact. It resonates on a quantum level bonding, sounded terrifyingly permanent. And this bond allows the drain. It allows for support, she corrected gently but firmly. Energy can flow both ways. A strong, resonant partner can lend stability to the mother and child, mitigating the drain, potentially shielding them. But if the child's matrix is exceptionally weak, or if the partner's own energy reserves are insufficient, she didn't need to finish the sentence. Fatting, unsustainable. So best case, I act as a living battery charger and shield, Kale summarized dryly. Worst case, we both get drained into husks, assuming the Cortasi don't get us first. That is a stark assessment, Lyra conceded, but not inaccurate. She turned fully towards him, her expression earnest. Kale, I would not ask this if there were any other viable path. My sisters, their attempts at conception have failed or resulted in tragedy. Our lineage weakens with each cycle. Without new strength, without this chance, the Cathar dominion, millennia of culture and knowledge could simply cease. The sheer weight of her words, the desperation underlying them, was staggering. He wasn't just saving her line, he was potentially saving her entire species from slow extinction. No pressure. He looked at the complex diagrams, at the vast star charts, then back at Lyra, at the hope and fear warring in her extraordinary eyes. The danger was immense, the unknowns terrifying, but the connection, it was undeniably real. He felt it now, a low hum beneath his skin, an awareness of her presence that transcended the physical. And despite everything, despite the risks, the idea of walking away felt wrong. like leaving a crucial piece of himself behind. "Okay," he said, the word feeling momentous. "Okay, conscious intent, mutual acceptance. How does it work?" A slow smile spread across Lyra's face, lighting her up from within. The golden light flared, chasing away the shadows, warm and brilliant. "It is a ritual, an exchange, a sharing of self on the deepest level." She stepped closer, reaching out, her scaled hand hovering inches from his chest again. The air between them vibrated. "It requires trust, Kale, absolute trust." He met her gaze, holding it steadily. Trust didn't come easily to him. But looking at her now, raw and honest, having laid bare the terrible risks and the impossible stakes, he found a reservoir of it he hadn't known he possessed. He nodded slowly. "All right, Lyra, show me." Her smile widened, filled with relief and something more potent, anticipation. Her fingers finally made contact, resting gently over his heart. The familiar jolt was stronger this time, a wave of warmth and energy that flowed through him, welcomed and willingly met. "Then prepare yourself, Kale," she whispered, her voice resonating with power and promise. "The bonding begins now." The bonding wasn't painful, but it was intense, overwhelming. Lyra guided him through it, her touch anchoring him as sensation washed over him in waves. It wasn't just physical, it was mental, emotional, energetic. She pressed her forehead to his, her cool scales a stark contrast to the sudden heat flaring within him. Her eyes closed, and the light beneath her skin pulsed, synchronizing with his heartbeat, which hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird. "Open yourself, Kale," she murmured, her voice echoing not just in the air but somehow inside his mind, a gentle coaxing presence. "Do not resist the flow, accept, share." He grit his teeth, fighting years of ingrained self-preservation, the instinct to wall off his core, protect his energy. But the resonance between them was a powerful current, pulling him deeper. He felt her presence nudge against his mental barriers, not forcing but inviting. He took a shaky breath and consciously lowered his shields, letting the connection flow. It felt like diving into a warm, starlit ocean. Images, feelings, sensations flooded his mind, not distinct memories but impressions. The cool, silent depths of Cathar oceans, the weight of millennia of tradition, the fierce, protective love for her people, the crushing burden of her duty, the sharp sting of past losses, the unexpected, terrifying hope he represented. And beneath it all, a current of profound loneliness. He felt her surprise as his own essence flowed back towards her, the grit of scrapyards, the vast emptiness of space between stars, the sting of betrayal from a past venture gone wrong, the carefully guarded flicker of romanticism he rarely acknowledged, the sharp, sudden flare of protective instinct towards her. Her breath hitched, and the golden light radiating from her intensified, becoming almost blindingly bright. He felt her absorbing his energy, not draining it, but tasting it, understanding it, weaving it with her own. A feedback loop began, energy cycling between them, growing stronger, warmer, brighter with each pass. It wasn't just his energy flowing into her or hers into him. It felt like they were creating something new together, a shared reservoir of warmth and light. His knees felt weak. He tightened his grip on her waist, holding on as the sensations crested. He saw flashes of potential futures, a child with eyes like starlight and hair like his, hunted by shadowy figures, protected by Lyra's fierce power and his own desperate ingenuity. He felt the potential drain, the leeching weakness, but also the counterbalancing strength of their combined resonance, a shield forged of connection. Lyra pulled back slightly, her eyes snapping open. They glowed with fierce intensity, twin supernovas. Her hands framed his face, her thumbs stroking his cheekbones. The tendrils near her temples pressed gently against his skin, no longer feeling alien but like an extension of her touch, her awareness. "Kale," she breathed, his name a prayer, a confirmation. The bond settled, a tangible presence within him, a low, steady hum beneath his skin, connecting him to her across the space between them. He felt different, more grounded yet somehow expanded, vulnerable yet strangely powerful. "Lyra," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. The intensity of the bonding had stripped away his sarcasm, his defenses, leaving him raw and open. He saw her, truly saw her, not just as an alien royal but as the other half of this terrifying, exhilarating equation. The air crackled with the aftermath, thick with unspoken promises and shared vulnerability. The immediate crisis of the bonding was over, but the reality of their situation remained. The Cortazzi were still out there. The biological risks were still present. But now they weren't facing it alone. He reached up, his hand covering hers where it rested on his cheek. Her scales were smooth, familiar now. "So," he said softly, "partners." A slow, genuine smile spread across her face, reaching her luminous eyes. It transformed her, softening the regal lines, revealing the woman beneath the title. "Partners," she confirmed, her voice filled with warmth. The golden light beneath her scales pulsed gently, a steady, reassuring rhythm that echoed the newfound connection humming within him. Just as the fragile peace settled around them, a new alarm blared, harsher, more insistent than before. Red lights flashed violently, overriding the ambient glow. "Proximity alert," Lyra snapped, instantly alert, her hand tightening on his face before dropping away as she spun towards the console. Multiple signatures, closing fast. "They're back." Cale swore, the brief moment of connection shattered by the renewed threat. "Didn't disabling the clamps get rid of them?" "These are different signatures," Lyra said, her fingers flying across the console, bringing up tactical displays. "Smaller vessels, boarding pods, they're bypassing the main defenses." She pointed to a schematic of the ship, blinking red icons converging on their section. "They know where the auxiliary control is. They're coming for us." He moved to stand beside her, shoulder to shoulder, automatically scanning the readouts, his pilot instincts kicking in. "Can we vent this section? Buy some time." "Too close," Lyra muttered, her eyes narrowed in concentration. "We wouldn't escape the decompression, and they likely have environmental suits." She tapped another control, sealing the access tunnel they'd used. Heavy thuds echoed from that direction almost immediately, metallic impacts against the reinforced door. "They're cutting through." Cale looked around the small room. Limited options. One sealed entrance now under assault. No obvious weapons cache, just consoles and conduits and them. He felt the bond hum between them, a silent exchange of adrenaline and resolve. He could feel her fear, sharp and cold beneath her warrior's focus, and he knew she could feel his own grim determination. "Okay," he said, grabbing a heavy maintenance tool, a spanner wrench from a nearby alcove. "Not much, but better than nothing. Looks like we're testing this partnership sooner than expected." Lyra met his gaze, a fierce light in her eyes. The golden glow beneath her scales sharpened, edged with crimson again. She flexed her hands, her dark talons extending slightly. "They seek the rare," she hissed, a predatory undertone entering her voice. "Let us show them just how dangerous rare can be." The door behind them groaned, buckling inwards under a focused energy beam. Sparks showered the deck. They braced themselves, side by side, ready to face the storm. The door exploded inward in a shower of molten metal and screeching alarms. Two figures, clad in bulky, dark environmental suits with opaque visors, stormed into the auxiliary control room, energy rifles raised. They moved with brutal efficiency, clearly trained for boarding actions. "Cortazzi." Cale didn't hesitate. He hurled the heavy spanner wrench with all his might at the lead figure. It wasn't elegant, but it was effective. The wrench clanged off the hunter's helmet, staggering him for a crucial second. In that instant, Lyra moved. She was a blur of indigo and crimson light, impossibly fast. She didn't engage the first hunter directly. Instead, she slammed her palm against a nearby conduit junction Cale had eyed earlier. Raw energy arced out, not lethal but blindingly bright and disorienting, engulfing the intruders in crackling static discharge. The Cortazzi recoiled, momentarily blinded, their rifles wavering. Cale seized the opening, tackling the first hunter low, driving his shoulder into the armored knees. They crashed to the deck, the impact jarring Cale's teeth. He scrambled, trying to wrestle the energy rifle away, but the Cortazzi soldier was strong, his armored suit giving him leverage. Lyra dealt with the second intruder. She flowed around his blind swings, her movements fluid and economical. Her talons, extensions of her fingers, flashed out, scoring deep gouges in the hunter's armored suit, seeking vulnerable joints and power conduits. The hunter roared, firing his rifle wildly. A blast scorched the bulkhead inches from Cale's head. He ducked, rolling away as the first hunter regained his footing, bringing the rifle butt down towards Cale's face. Cale twisted, feeling the impact graze his shoulder. He lashed out with a kick, connecting with the hunter's side, buying himself another second. He could feel Lyra's presence through the bond, a whirlwind of focused fury and controlled power. He felt a surge of energy flow from her towards him, not a weaponized blast, but a wave of invigorating warmth, sharpening his senses, clearing the momentary daze from the near miss. Bolstered, he lunged again, grabbing the barrel of the hunter's rifle, using the man's own momentum to twist the weapon away. They struggled, Cale gritting his teeth against the superior strength encased in the suit. Lyra, meanwhile, had disabled her opponent. She ripped through the power pack on his back, silencing his suit systems and leaving him floundering. With a final, precise strike, she shattered his visor and delivered a stunning blow to his exposed head. He crumpled to the deck. She spun, her eyes blazing, immediately turning her attention to Cale's struggle. The first hunter, seeing his partner fall, roared in fury, shoving Cale back with brutal force. He raised his rifle, aiming point-blank. Time seemed to slow. Cale saw the weapon's energy cell glow, felt the heat begin to build. There was no way to dodge. Suddenly, Lyra was there, slamming into the hunter's side like a projectile. Her speed was astonishing. She drove him off balance, her talons sinking into the gaps in his armor around the neck seal. The hunter shrieked, a gurgling, choked sound, dropping the rifle as his suit integrity failed. It clattered harmlessly to the deck. Lyra didn't relent. There was a primal intensity in her now, the protector defending her territory, her partner. With a final, vicious twist, she silenced the hunter permanently. Silence fell, broken only by the crackling remnants of the energy discharge and the distant, fatting alarms. Cale pushed himself up, breathing heavily, staring at the two fallen Cortazzi. His shoulder throbbed where the rifle butt had connected. Lyra stood over the second hunter, her chest rising and falling rapidly, the crimson light slowly receding from her scales, replaced by the swirling gold and indigo. Her talons were still extended, dripping slightly with the Cortazzi's internal fluids. She looked terrifying and magnificent. She turned to him, her luminous eyes searching his face, checking for injuries. "Are you harmed, Cale?" He shook his head, flexing his bruised shoulder. "Nothing major, you." "Intact," she confirmed, retracting her talons smoothly. The fierce warrior persona softened slightly, concern replacing the battle fury. She stepped over the fallen hunter and came towards him, her hand hovering near his shoulder. He didn't flinch away. Instead, he reached out, his fingers brushing her arm. The connection hummed between them, a silent affirmation. They'd faced the threat together. They'd protected each other. "Your technique is effective," he managed, a shaky grin touching his lips. "Remind me not to get on your bad side." A faint smile touched her lips in return, though her eyes remained serious. "They underestimated the strength of our resonance." She looked down at the fallen Cortazzi, her expression hardening again. "This was only a probe. More will follow. They know we are here. They know about you." Cale nodded, the reality of their ongoing danger sinking in. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. "So what now? We can't stay here." "No," Lyra agreed. "Auxiliary control is compromised. We must reach the primary bridge, regain full command of the vessel, and find sanctuary." She met his gaze, her starlight eyes holding his. "Are you ready, partner?" He looked at her, at the strength and vulnerability warring within her, at the undeniable bond pulsing between them, at the chaos they had just survived side by side. He thought of the life he'd left behind, the lonely existence on the fringes of the galaxy. This was dangerous, insane, possibly fatal, but it was real, and he wasn't alone anymore. He offered her a genuine smile, free of sarcasm, full of resolve. "Let's go raise some hell." They moved through the ship's corridors with renewed purpose, a silent, efficient team. Lyra led the way, her knowledge of the vessel's intricate layout unerring, while Cale watched their backs, the captured Cortazzi energy rifle feeling solid and reassuring in his hands. The bond between them was a constant, subtle presence, a low hum beneath the surface of his awareness. It wasn't distracting. It felt like an extension of his own senses, giving him a faint premonition of movement around corners, a shared vigilance. They encountered sporadic resistance, automated defense systems reactivated by the Cortazzi intrusion, a few stray security drones, but Lyra bypassed or disabled them with practiced ease, her connection to the ship's core systems apparently granting her override capabilities even from secondary terminals they passed. Cale found himself watching her, not just as a protector or an alien royal, but as Lyra. He saw the way the light beneath her scales shifted with her concentration, deepening to sapphire when she focused intensely on a technical override, flaring gold when she glanced back to check on him. He noticed the slight, almost imperceptible flick of her fins when she sensed something amiss, the subtle tension in her shoulders that only eased when they were moving through secured sections. They communicated with minimal words, relying on shared glances, slight gestures, and the intuitive understanding flowing through the bond. When they had to fight, neutralizing two more Cortasi scouts near a junction lift, they moved in concert, anticipating each other's actions, covering weaknesses, pressing advantages. Cale used the rifle for range suppression while Lyra closed the distance with blinding speed, her talons flashing. It was brutal, efficient, and strangely exhilarating. Finally, they reached the heavy blast doors leading to the primary bridge. Lyra placed her palm on the access panel. Light patterns danced beneath her touch, and with a heavy pneumatic hiss, the doors slid open. The bridge was vast, panoramic viewports showing the stardusted blackness outside, thankfully free of any visible Cortasi vessels for the moment. Cathar crew members, leaner, paler versions of Lyra, their scales shimmering in softer hues of silver and pearl, looked up from their stations, their luminous eyes widening in surprise and relief at her appearance. An older Cathar male, his scales a distinguished deep amethyst, rushed forward. Matriarch designate Lyra, we feared the Cortasi breached auxiliary control. Lyra cut him off with a sharp gesture, her voice ringing with authority. The intruders have been neutralized, Commander Voral. Status report. Voral straightened, nodding curtly. Minimal casualties among the crew, primary systems are secure. The Cortasi ships retreated after the boarding parties failed to report. He glanced warily at Cale, taking in his human appearance and the Cortasi rifle he carried. And the outsider, Lyra stepped closer to Cale, an unmistakably possessive gesture. The golden light beneath her scales pulsed warmly. Cale is with me. He assisted in repelling the boarders. He is under my protection. And she added, her voice softening almost imperceptibly as she looked at Cale, he is my chosen consort. The bond is established. A collective gasp went through the bridge crew. Voral's eyes widened, his gaze flicking between Cale and Lyra, assessing the undeniable energy humming between them. The implications were clear. This human wasn't just a rescued outsider, he was the potential future of their lineage. Cale felt a flush rise under his collar at the sudden scrutiny, but he met Voral's gaze steadily, refusing to be intimidated. He felt Lyra's hand brush his arm, a silent offering of support. Voral inclined his head slowly, a gesture of respect, perhaps reluctant acceptance. As you command, Matriarch designate, your choice gives us hope. Hope. There was that word again. It seemed to hang heavy in the air of the Cathar vessel. Lyra addressed her crew, issuing orders with calm authority, directing damage control, setting course for a hidden enclave, reinforcing security protocols. Cale stood slightly apart, letting her command but feeling intrinsically linked to the proceedings. He was part of this now, whether he fully understood it or not. Later, when the immediate flurry of activity had subsided and the ship was smoothly underway, Lyra approached him. The bridge was quiet, the crew focused on their duties, the starscape sliding past the viewports. It is done, she said softly, fatigue evident in the slight drooping of her fins. We are safe for now. For now, Cale echoed, looking out at the endless expanse of space. Safety felt relative. Voral mentioned hope. You really think this us is going to fix everything? Lyra followed his gaze to the stars. It is the best chance we have had in generations, Cale. The only chance. She turned to him, her luminous eyes searching his face. The risks remain. The Cortasi will not give up easily. The biological drain is still an unknown quantity with our bond. I know, he said quietly. He met her gaze, seeing the exhaustion, the weight of responsibility, but also the fierce determination and the undeniable warmth she directed at him. But we face it together, right, partners? Her lips curved into a soft, genuine smile. The golden light beneath her scales glowed warmly, bathing him in its gentle radiance. "Partners," she confirmed. She reached out, her cool, scaled fingers intertwining with his. Her touch sent a jolt of warmth through him, the bond flaring comfortingly between them. It wasn't just about survival or duty anymore. It was about connection, about shared vulnerability, about the terrifying, exhilarating prospect of building a future together against impossible odds. He squeezed her hand, feeling the delicate strength in her grip, the steady pulse of the life they had vowed to protect together. The stars outside seemed brighter, filled not just with danger but with possibility. It was a new beginning, fraught with peril but one he wouldn't face alone.